Now, as Nigerians prepare to mark 61 years of independence this week, what has this country missed as it trudged along its evolutionary path as a nation? Well, for those looking at Nigeria from the outside and perhaps thinking about investing their money into the country, what they often see is a country that's grown to become the biggest economy in Africa, but also a nation that's witnessed the ebb and flow of international investment interest, depending on a host of things, including political stability, government policies, enabling environment, security issues, infrastructure development, and many other factors. So the result of this is that after more than 6 decades of independence, Nigeria is still not where its economic and political presence ought to be in order to be felt more strongly on the global stage. Far from it, the feeling seems to persist that with various insurgencies raging and youth unemployment at staggeringly high levels, it won't take much more than the spark of a tinderbox for the forges of discontent to flare a very bright red indeed. Well, to get an international investment perspective on all this, I'm joined now on the line from Maryland in the US by Stephen Hayes, President and CEO Emeritus of the Corporate Council for Africa, who led the council for 17 years and helped to grow its membership from 86 to more than 200, with its members now representing 85% of US private investment in Africa. Mr. Hayes is currently president of the consulting firm Cohen & Woods, the oldest consulting firm in the US, focusing entirely on Africa and looking to expand business between the US and Africa. Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Hayes, for joining us. Let's get your sense on where things are with Nigeria at the moment, insofar as it would have been possible for you to intercede on behalf of this country and make the case for Nigeria after 61 years of independence. What would you say on Nigeria's behalf? Would you have been hesitant to speak up for Nigeria, given the many opportunities that the country has lost by its own hand, or would you be leading the charge for this country? A long question, I know.
Well, it's actually, Charles, thank you for having me again. It's good to see you again. I feel both ways. On one hand, I think there's a lot of promise in Nigeria. I think in terms of Africa, especially, I think Nigeria and Kenya have the two most active cauldrons, I would say, of young entrepreneurs, which represent the future. There's a very, very bright group of, and large, I think, of entrepreneurs, young entrepreneurs in Nigeria doing exciting things, as there is in Kenya. On the other hand, your introduction hit it very, very well, is that despite young entrepreneurs, there's also massive youth unemployment. That can only forebode poorly for the future. And also not only the unemployment, but the news stories of the violence throughout Nigeria. For instance, Sokoto being closed down, I think yesterday, 15 soldiers being killed elsewhere, all in this past day. Those stories scare away investors because it's not simply in one area. It's becoming more national in scope, and I think that worries a lot of people.
And I mean, you've been sort of a friend of Africa, and certainly the agent provocateur, if you like, of investment into the continent for many years. What level of reform have you seen in a country like Nigeria in its 61 years of independence? And what level of reform would you like to see in this country that would help draw investment from the, for instance, 200 member companies of the Corporate Council of Africa, for Africa, which you led for 17 years and who represent around 85% of US private investment in Africa?
Well, at one time, there were actually 300 companies. And yes, they're committed to Africa. I was at a meeting yesterday with President Geingob of Namibia, a CCA meeting, and I was impressed by a whole new generation of new companies coming into the corporate council. There's a strong interest in Africa still, and that was nothing but encouraging to me to see that. Nigeria, I mean, it's a complex country, no doubt about it. You've got extraordinary history, not simply from 1960 on, but long before that. It's a country of not one culture, but many cultures. And I'm becoming more and more an advocate in this country for the United States, be it private or government sector, factoring in cultural differences as a means, as an important determinant for how you invest. I think the problem with U.S. investors and U.S. government policy to some extent has been that they simply have not been able to do. It's been more an overlay of U.S. values and U.S. ways of doing business without really incorporating the cultural differences. Now, having said that, going back to your question, I think that the positives have been that there's been greater privatization. I think you need a mix of government regulation and privatization. I'm not a totally free market type person. I think you need government to regulate, to protect the population. But I think the growing privatization is overall good for Nigeria, particularly if it hits small businesses. I think you need to put far more emphasis on small business. The Nigeria and medium-sized business. The Nigeria policy of the past 60 years has been almost 100% determined on oil. 100% is probably a little strong, but a large part of your national economy has been determined on oil. Because of climate change, that has to change. Also, it hasn't been good for Nigeria. It's created significant disparities between the rich and the poor, the few that have benefited versus the rest of the population, and so forth. So I think there's got to be a greater diversification of the economy for one. I think you've got to look at how new programs that will stimulate employment. Large companies aren't going to be the sole employers. You've got to, if youth are going to be employed, there's got to be more businesses. In the United States, for instance, not that that's necessarily the role model, but 85% of employment has been through small businesses. So I would think that economic programs that stimulate small business development, medium-sized business development throughout the country would be one important step. Diversification of the economy it would be another. And another problem I think Nigeria has, and it's not unique to Nigeria, by the way. I'm not hammering on Nigeria because I've been a strong booster for Nigeria investment because of the entrepreneurship that I have seen over the years, but is the health sector. It's a sector in Nigeria that has enormous potential because it's not inculcated deeply within Nigeria's economy or the cities, and there needs to be a strong health sector development, and that's a business opportunity as well. Those are areas that I think that Nigeria ought to look at. Certainly IT, but everyone else is jumping on IT as a salvation. I think you've got to also look at other sectors, such as health, to really make Nigeria unique.
Well, that's very interesting, particularly seen in light of the fact that you are now the president of Cohen and Woods, which is one of the oldest consulting firms in America that focuses entirely on Africa. Would that be the advice that you would give the Nigerian government?
Well, that would certainly be part of it. I think that they've also got they have to work on image. It's perception and reality. The reality may be that, and is, that there's enormous opportunity in Nigeria, and there is just tremendous opportunity, not simply through the population, and the population's a double-edged sword, frankly, but because of the entrepreneurship that exists, the spirit of Nigeria people overall, which has been very aggressive sometimes, and that's in a positive way. The need to be a leader, and they are a leader. All that plays to Nigeria's strength, but we've got to find ways that really develop youth employment opportunities. It's otherwise. Your introduction was exactly right. It's a potential firestorm, I think, in Nigeria and other places, unless you begin to address the youth employment issues, and that also involves education.
Okay, well, please stay with us. We want to talk with you some more. You're watching the Arise interview. Plenty more still ahead as we continue our chat with Stephen Hayes, President and CEO Emeritus of the Corporate Council for Africa, as Nigeria marks 61 years of independence this week. Stay with us. Welcome back to the Arise interview. I'm Charles Aniagolu. Now, my current guest is Stephen Hayes, President and CEO Emeritus of the Corporate Council for Africa and current President of the consulting firm Cohen & Woods, the oldest consulting firm in the US, focusing entirely on Africa. And Stephen Hayes is a well-known name among business circles in the US and Africa. He was the longest-serving president and CEO of the Council for Africa and did a jolly good job of expanding the membership of the Council, helping to attract billions of dollars worth of US investment into Africa, including Nigeria. He's been given numerous awards, including a Special Award of Merit by the US Department of Commerce. He's also received a Merit Award from the Africa Chamber of Commerce of the US, an award that was given previously to the former US President Barack Obama. So what does he make of Nigeria as an investment destination 61 years after independence? Stephen Hayes, President and CEO Emeritus of the Corporate Council for Africa and current President of the consulting firm Cohen & Woods, the oldest consulting firm in the US focusing entirely on Africa, is still with me on the line from Maryland. Thank you very much indeed for staying with us. Why do you think revenue is increasing at such a low rate in a country with such a large population and with the potential for bigger production such as Nigeria?
Well, as I was saying earlier, too, the difference in vision is the difference between reality and perception. Reality doesn't necessarily rule, but the perception of what's going on does determine, I think, more sometimes in the real situation, what people want to do. Right now, the perception of Nigeria is that there's a significant security problem that's not getting better necessarily. And I think that has to be addressed. But the problem, you can't simply address a security problem without addressing the causes of that insecurity. And that goes then back to, again, I think the youth employment issue, which is just a time bomb anywhere, and especially a time bomb in Nigeria, given the influence and the leadership that Nigeria has on the entire continent. So I think what happens in Nigeria is terribly important, not simply to Africa, but it's also very important to the world. I do still believe in Nigeria, and I think the best opportunity for U.S. companies, other than the large companies who will necessarily go where there's strong population anyway, such as perhaps the Walmarts and so forth. But I think what I would like to encourage and plan to encourage through Cohen & Woods is linking small to medium-sized businesses from the United States to invest in Nigeria. And frankly, there is potential for Nigerian investors to invest in the U.S. And I think that also strengthens the linkage between U.S. and Nigerian companies. It's been disappointing, frankly, over the years to see so few U.S. investors in Nigeria beyond the major oil companies. Certainly, there's been brand names in Nigeria, but nothing, or very few opportunities, or very few investments of significant size. And I think, as you were telling me privately, the foreign direct investment in Nigeria has dropped significantly. And I think that, again, the security situation is probably the number one reason for that right now. COVID certainly didn't help, and we can't dismiss that. It had an enormous influence on global economies, but it can't be the sole excuse when other countries are now on the rise again.
Well, absolutely. And of course, Nigeria is heading towards its Independence Day, which is on Friday. And clearly that there's quite a lot of reflection going on, post-mortem, as to why the country is where it is and where it ought to be. You mentioned security as one of the big problems. You also mentioned COVID. But I mean, from an investor's point of view, how much is foreign direct investment also being constrained in Nigeria by things like policy inconsistency and macroeconomic instability? Because, I mean, FDI inflow, as you mentioned, seems incredibly low for a country like Nigeria that should be attracting a heck of a lot more.
It's shockingly low. Given the scope and scale of Nigeria, 1 out of every 4 Africans is Nigerian. That the FDI is that low is just stunning to me. It should be. You're right. It should be far higher. Policy certainly affects that. But again, I think that in every country has an inconsistent economic policy, particularly if it's torn by different political parties back and forth. To a large extent, that's good for checks and balances. But Nigeria hasn't had a consistent economic policy for some time. And I think that there's got to be some consensus towards what the economic policy needs to be, and a greater unity. In Nigeria, that's going to be hard. It's, given the times at the global times now, it's hard anywhere. So it's not simply Nigeria, but it is. There is a need for a growing consensus, and right now, I do read Nigeria newspapers, at least glimpse at them every day, because I have somebody that sends them to me every day via email. It's very, very difficult, I think, times to expect that Nigeria to come together. It's going to take extraordinary leadership, and that goes to your point of consistent policy and an agreement on policy, rather than politicians fighting for their own individual place versus the national good.
Right, and obviously that's something for Nigeria's leadership and the Nigerian people to worry about. But I mean, I'm wondering, for a consulting firm such as yours, which has targeted Africa quite successfully in the past, is there an opportunity for you in this low FDI that Nigeria has? I mean, is it sort of giddy up time sort of thing?
Well, it's giddy up time for me as well. I've got to look much more closely at where the opportunities are in Nigeria, particularly for a variety of companies. We have companies coming to us almost daily asking where are the opportunities. Some people have a country in mind, and they walk in and say, I want to invest here. And in particular, my company may be an energy company, or my company be a health company, but they know very little about the country. So I need to, and our firm needs to, look at what are the links that can be made in Nigeria to make that investment happen. I've seen over the years a lot of talk, including from the corporate council, my own council, and myself, frankly, about investing in Africa, but it's been a slow, hard process. And I think we need people on the ground, which is why I'm also going to work with staffing on the ground in Africa to find those opportunities where companies can begin to link. The large companies do their own research. The mega companies do their own research. They make the decisions themselves. The need is the medium-sized companies that don't necessarily have the resources or the people on the ground to make those decisions. I also think that any U.S. company investing in Africa must work with a local partner. It's not feasible to try to do business from abroad without developing some partnerships. And I think that's also important to employment opportunities. So we need to look at companies and individuals that can be reliable partners for businesses and go from there. There's very little chance of a business being successful in Nigeria or many other countries without having that local leadership to make the business possible.
Stephen Hayes, President and CEO Emeritus of the Corporate Council for Africa and current President of Cohen & Woods, thank you very much indeed for joining us.